So we're picking up from where we left off last time, which was the end of the Battle of Bunker Hill, which was 1775 in June. And we got to talk about one more event in 1775. Yes, a lot of things are happening in 1775. And this one is the meeting of the Second Continental Congress in Philadelphia. So if you need to make additions and notations to your information, please make sure you're doing that. So what is it? Well, this one's a little bit different. All 13 colonies now show up. Okay. So what do? A little bit different than the first. They start to plan the idea of perhaps a new country. And so they begin to govern the colonies like a Congress we have today. So they create the Continental Army, okay? And they call it the Continental Army because people are coming from all different parts of the continent, as far north as New England and as far south as Georgia. If you have a Continental Army, you got to pick a commander. You also start printing money. Okay, Continentals. They create a post office so they can start communicating with each other. Okay. And one thing that they do, because there were some people who were not yet ready to break with England, this is 75. This is 1 year before the Americans declare independence. 1 year, 12 months. So, what do? Well, they come up with this idea, we have to send a petition, which is basically sort of like a statement appealing to some authority. This authority would obviously be the king. And they're asking for something. So when you sign a petition, you're usually appealing to some kind of authority, maybe a principal, and you're asking for something in a written statement. So the one thing I've got to teach you is this thing called the olive branch petition. So if you look at this word olive branch, maybe you've heard the phrase, oh, you should offer that person an olive branch. Olives have symbolized peace throughout time. So what this was a statement sent by the colonists to the king in the summer of 1775, in July. And basically what they're asking for is, let's stop all this fighting. Let's ask for peace. Stop the war. When the king receives the olive branch petition, he doesn't even read it. He ignores it and says that the colonies are in open rebellion. You have to understand how mail traveled so slowly. So the king is learning of not only this olive branch petition, these people who are asking for peace, he is also getting news of the events at Bunker Hill. So in one thing, they are killing his soldiers, in the other, they're asking for peace. So he's very frustrated with the American colonists. Okay, if you have a dollar bill around, look on the back. So if you don't have one, stop the presentation, go find one. So when we talk about the olive branch, I always want you to take notice of some of the parts of your money and things like that, some of the hidden symbols around. So as you flip it on the back side, you'll see this image, the seal of the United States, the Great Seal, and you see the eagle here. It says E pluribus unum, out of many one. But if you look down into the talons, of the eagle, you see that there are arrows in one, and then you see this branchy thing over here. Well, guess what the branch is? That's right, it's an olive branch. And if you count how many olives and how many leaves and all that stuff, guess what number? You're right, number 13. Same with the arrows. But if you look at the presentation of which way the eagle is looking, it's always looking for peace. Okay, we're at the end now. 1776, event or cause. Well, you would think it's the one that everyone knows of, but it's something different. So here we go. It is written by a man by the name of Thomas Paine, and he writes a pamphlet called Common Sense. Here's Thomas Paine, and over here you can sort of see what his pamphlet would have looked like. It was a small book. So let's talk, why does he call his pamphlet Common Sense? He could have called it anything. But Thomas Paine was very motivational and very inspired by what was going on in the colonies. And so he thought this was a call for independence to all the people who were sort of fence sitters. They didn't decide which way to go. He says, we are trying to persuade other Americans to join us because basically the common sense that he believes is independence. And he says it's time to make a break. The publication of Common Sense turns out to be a bestseller. Even for people who could not read, they had it read to them. Thousands and thousands of copies were spread up and down the colonies. And so what happens next, we got to get the colonists' reaction, is the Americans now begin to think about independence. In the beginnings of 1776, and the Second Continental Congress begins to debate it. All right, so the big main event, 1776, The event, of course, is the Declaration of Independence is written and then adopted by the Second Continental Congress. So here they meet in Independence Hall, we call it now, but they called it the Pennsylvania State House back in the day. All right, let's take a look at this picture here. Hopefully you recognize some of the men in the picture. So we got Jefferson, John Adams, Ben Franklin. These are the men selected to actually write the document stating our reasons for separation. So there they are. So Franklin is one of the oldest delegates there, very wise. He had been our representative over there. Adams is a man of great ability to write, but he believes that Jefferson, who really never spoke in Congress, was even a better writer because he had read some of his work. So what I want you to do is stop the recording after I ask this question. What does it mean to declare something? Okay, so stop it and write something down. Let's see if you're right. Okay, here we go. So it means to say, to state, or to make known as a determination. So even though we saw that committee of three, there's actually one main author, and that would of course be this gentleman. This is Thomas Jefferson, the main author of the Declaration of Independence. I believe it took him a little bit more, between 2 and 3 weeks, to write down his thoughts on what he wanted to say and how he wanted to say it. So we have to kind of go back and think, well, why did the colonists write a declaration anyways? There are a lot of countries that were created, and there was no such thing as a Declaration of Independence. But the men at the time felt so strongly that they just didn't want to break away and not write a document. That document was so important to them because they felt that they needed to tell the world why they're doing what they were doing. So let's look here. It is basically 3 main things what the Declaration is. It's first of all a statement of why we wish to be independent. That's the preamble. The second thing is it's a listing of rights that not only he believed that all Americans had, but eventually that all people have. So the Declaration would inspire people around the world. And finally, if you look at the document, it's actually a list of grievances. Remember what a grievance is. By George III, that he had caused us, that pushed us to declare independence. Okay, I'm going to trick you with this last one. So, when was it adopted? Now you probably are thinking, duh, Mr. Schick, July 4th. But no, it was actually adopted on the 2nd of July. And today, this is where it is, the National Archives down in Washington, D.C. So hopefully you've seen it, maybe not, but I'll take you there now. So here's the National Archives, and inside of it, the most hallowed area is this hall of documents. So you can sort of see there's one here, there's 4 pieces here, and over here. So let me explain what's down there. So the Declaration is off to the left. The next one in the middle would be the United States Constitution, and over here is the United States Bill of Rights. Okay, I'm glad you're staying with me. I know these are long, but here we go. This was what John Adams said. This will be the most memorable epic in the history of America. It'll be solemnized with pomp and parade, games, sports, bells, bonfires, and illuminations from one end of this continent to the other from this time forevermore. And the date that he was talking about, the 2nd of July. So he wrote this on the 3rd, thinking the 2nd was the day that everyone would focus on. All right, we're coming to the end. The colonist reaction is now, even though they said that they are independent, but they got to fight for it now. So here you have this famous incorrect painting that they're all in one room, which never happened. That they all stood up and signed it. That did not happen that way. But I want to share this one last thought of Ben Franklin with his dark sense of humor. He said this, Franklin said about the Declaration, "We must all hang together in this endeavor, or we most assuredly will hang separate." Hopefully you get the idea of what he's saying. Okay?